Welcome back to After Effects. I think that I'm sometimes talking to myself too much, but this is what makes me a great YouTuber. So today we're gonna take a look how to comp passes of 3D renderings inside of After Effects. And I will sometimes switch to Nuke and show how they are working the same way in Nuke. So don't be afraid if you are a Nuke user. I will do a theoretical class here. Everybody will get things they won't get in any 3D passes video, because I found something missing there. There is a lot of tutors on how to put together the beauty pass, and one of the best is this by Hugo. And I want to tell you the actual reason behind why beauty pass can consist of different passes. It doesn't be like a rule to have GI, lighting, reflection, refraction and specular in the beauty pass. Something might be missing depending on how you constructed your shader initially on the 3D stage. So for instance, if you have like a box and a lighting this box, and the box has diffuse material like that, with refraction and reflection turned off, so any kind of PRDF, then our beauty pass, if GI will be turned off, will consist only out of the lighting pass, because there will be no other passes than the lighting to render for the rendering engine. I just want to tell you the idea what the passes actually are. They are the passes of the rendering engine, which you can turn on and off in your shader and render settings. If I render this, so let's say OpenEXR box version 0, only lighting, so 16-bit EXR, save it, render it, then you will see that RGB will be the same as lighting pass. And if we will power up our compositing software and throw it inside, you can see that if we will break down it to passes, you will see that there is no difference between the beauty pass and the lighting pass, because it consists only out of the lighting pass. See, no difference here. So now, back to our 3D scene. Let's include the reflection. But to render the reflection, we need something to reflect, right? If we just turn on it in the shader like that, set some glossiness here, it doesn't matter, just some glossiness, and include it into the render passes, it will still be black because we don't have anything to reflect here. And that's why our beauty pass still consists only out of the lighting pass, because there is nothing to reflect. But if we will like take the plane now, let's make it with some texture. Alright, bitmap, a lot of textures here. Someday they will all be yours because I love you too much. Ground, for example. Apply it, make the UV map smaller. And with turned on reflection, we have to get some reflections inside of our rendering. Here they are. This is what is being reflected on this object, because it has reflection turned on in its shader. And that's the lighting pass, which obviously shows everything that takes light with its diffuse parameters. And the reflection shows us everything that is reflected. And the reason why this ground also reflected this green box is because I've duplicated this material to which I've turned on the reflection. If I will turn the reflection off here, then it won't be reflective at all, because the reflection will be turned off. So now our beauty pass is constructed out of lighting, reflection and specular, because whenever you turn on the reflection you will have speculars in the scene, but I will talk about them in depth a little bit later for more step-by-step comprehension of what the render passes are. And if we will go inside of our compositing software, just fire up another copy of After Effects I have here. So let's import this box. So one thing to remember when working in After Effects with XRs, which are half float or float, you always should turn on 32-bit mode, because sometimes I saw After Effects not reading half float 16-bit XRs in the 16-bit mode. Can you imagine that? Maybe they have already fixed this, but just in case, I'm always in 32-bit mode, because I've seen it not to process properly the 16-bit compositions in 16-bit mode. And in 32-bit mode, it seems to process everything right. So that's why I'm always in 32-bit mode in After Effects. So let's create a new composition here and duplicate our beauty pass and throw an extractor effect on this box to get out the lighting pass. So this will be the lighting pass, and the another pass will be reflection. So one more thing you have to do in After Effects, after plussing these passes together with additive mode, of course, you have to change their gamma, because otherwise they won't be with the same gamma as the beauty pass. So let's just take levels effect, and let's even find out which gamma we have to get by pre-comping this layer here, locking this effects here, going back here, and just with difference mode looking at it while increasing the gamma. So it has to be somewhere near 2.2. Yeah, 2.4 is the value you should set your passes to, so that they will correspond to the beauty pass. So now you see that this adjustment layer, which is gamma correction, is showing us the beauty pass while we are looking onto our components of it. Reflection. So that's how it works. Now we have reflection and lighting. We have our beauty pass made out of them. Here's our beauty pass, here's other passes. Look absolutely the same. Alright, next, let's add something refractive to our scene, aka something transparent that refracts light. So to do that, let's create, another box, of course, which will be like maybe a glass here through which the light will fall on our initial box. So maybe it has to be thinner like that. I found V-Ray very good at processing passes, so that's why it is really great to learn passes on V-Ray. Sometimes these new GPU renders, they just crash sometimes in rendering the passes correctly. I won't name the exact ones because I'm not very proficient at it, but I know that V-Ray always does everything in passes perfectly. That's why it's so hard to learn it, because everything is working here. So let's make it like half refractive like that, maybe a little bit reflective, maybe like glass should be reflective, right? So now I've included the reflection and refraction into it, so diffuse can kinda turn it off completely, maybe like that. Refraction can be stronger. So now we have refraction and reflection turned on in this material. So let's call it glass, put it on this box like that, and render the scene. You can see that we will get our refraction inside of our beauty pass in the place where it is being rendered by our render engine. We also have reflection here because I've turned it on here, and we have a little bit of lighting pass here because diffuse is almost off. When you making shaders, don't use the like 0 values or maximum values. You always have to use like minimum values, you know, because there's always a little bit of this component inside of any shader. This will always work better if you will build shaders like that, not using the maximum and minimum, like zeros and maximum value. Just remember this tip, guys. So going to the same After Effects, for instance, and selecting all this passes here to replace them with second version of the box like that, holding Alt. Now I need to duplicate this reflection path to make it refraction. If you hit Alt and press here where you solo things, you will solo only the thing you are selecting and unsolo everything else. Now if I hit Ctrl Z, I will switch back to things that I've soloed initially. So now we can see that we have refraction in our scene. Refraction. Great. Let's go further. So as we turn on the GI, you should also remember that the GI is like the bounced light. This means that if we won't have any objects in the scene, we will get the same black path in the GI because we won't have anything for the lights to bounce from. Yes, I also should include it here in the render passes. Let's do this. So this should be global illumination. Here it is. So if I render it, you'll see that it will be black, and the only thing we will only have here is still the lighting path because I've hidden all the objects there. But if I will unhide them and rewrite this fourth version, we will see that in the GI we will have GI, which is the bounced light from the objects, and our render times will significantly grow. That's why the Unreal Engine with real-time global illumination will kill CPU render engines. Yeah, sad, but I can't do anything with this. I'm too old. I just have to wait till I die. Till my render finishes, I mean. So another thing I want you to know is that some passes are not being included into the beauty pass because they are technical passes. And this not only mean that the cryptomat won't be included into the beauty pass because it is purely technical pass, but some other passes as well. So if we select cryptomat, then it will definitely not be included into the beauty pass of our next render because it is a technical pass. It won't be included into the RGB color layer. And there's some other passes that won't be included, such as, for example, ambient occlusion. So in V-Ray, ambient occlusion is done by extra texture, which has to be made inside of material editor with V-Ray DOT, it is called. And just select it and throw it here, instance, and now I will name this ambient occlusion. And if I will render this, then you will see that our scene doesn't change at all. This is the beauty pass that we saw earlier. It is absolutely the same as the ambient occlusion is rendered separately. It is not included because it is not physically correct. The things that render engines try to include into beauty pass are physically correct passes, such as reflection, refraction, lighting, specular, global illumination, subsurface scattering maybe, transmission, something like that, that is physically correct. But if you will have some ambient occlusion that is like a shadow in the occluded areas, not dependent on the lighting conditions of the scene, it won't be included into the beauty pass. It will consider it as a technical pass as cryptomat, which is also not included into the beauty pass. This is what I wanted just to, make clear before I will make this breakdown of my composite, so that you will clearly understand how it was done. Oh yes, and if you are rendering the reflection, don't forget to add the specular, because the specular is the part of the reflection. It is just this small specular that is happening because of the reflection. It is the brightest part of the reflection, which is the direct reflection of the lighting source. That's why it is the brightest. That is also a part of the beauty pass. So to turn on the specular, you just add it with the reflection as soon as you have the reflection in your scene. Because only now, as the reflection is being turned on, the specular is being rendered. If there's no reflection in the scene, well, no reflection on this box, for example, there will be no specular on it as well, because the specular is the part of the reflection, is this bright part of the reflection. So yeah, that's how it goes. I've rendered global illumination, rendered the lighting, rendered the reflection, the specular, the refraction, and I have them all put in together here. So by the way, I have like a very handy tool in Nuke I've written by myself. It's called breakdown layers. You hit this and you get all the checkboxes on, you turn off the one that you don't want, and you get all the layers stacked like that, and then you can take your merges and pull them all together. And I have the ambient occlusion pass here, which I don't need right now. So you see that ambient occlusion is not included into the beauty pass. I'm now creating the beauty pass from all the passes that it has, and you see that if I won't include specular, nothing really changes, because specular is this little edge here with bright reflection. So the specular makes it complete. Just make sure you always turn on the specular if you have the specular as a separate pass when you are turning on the reflection, as it is like the part of the reflection. Alright, that's how it goes. And the ambient occlusion is not included into the beauty pass, and we can add it with multiply mode, for example, like that. You see that it is not in the beauty pass because it is not a technically correct pass. It is not a technically correct shadow. It just looks technically correct, but it is not. Alright, so that's how it works. Now let's go to After Effects and break down my work in it. Yeah, so here I am in composite composition, and let's take a look on our weapon store plate, which should be not so complex as I think. Yeah, the director said to turn off all these beautiful light passes from each letters that I've left turned on in the FX PhD course, because it drew too much attention from his boring shot, as my plate turned to be too beautiful. And that's why I've hidden them here, and this will make our breakdown a little bit more simple. So here I have the duplicated red light pass. I'm just duplicating it here to make it stronger here, you see? And the reason why I can control the separate light sources intensity on the compositing stage, which is, by the way, in my opinion, like essential things you should be able to control on compositing stage, is because I've separated passes of each light to their separate paths. So back to our box rendering. I've created another light here, and I've named them both. I named this first light A and the second light B. And now if we will create the light select pass, naming it with the name of the light and including it into it, doing the same with the second one, light select B, include B, and set it to full, then it will render everything that is being received by the shaders from these lights separately into these two passes. So my render finished, and I can separate the lights inside of it like that. So I've just made setup in After Effects, separating two passes A and B, which are the lights. I can control their opacity now. See? I'm controlling everything that this light emits and everything that shader receives from this light. This way you are controlling like light intensity. And if you want it to be brighter, just can duplicate it. Or use color correction effects, whatever you want. Gives you so much flexibility. Separate passes here of these two lights and the beauty pass. Let's delete all the other passes. You can see that they are absolutely the same. No difference between them, because they contain everything that shader receives from the specific light in the full mode. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what all of the other modes do. Like I know that direct specular will be only containing specular. For example, the direct illumination will contain only lighting and specular pass combined. To be exactly sure, you should go to your render engine manual and read about the modes you want to use. This is how it works, or at least that's how it should work. Back to our composite. So this makes you think that separation to lights makes it not correct to add overall specular reflection and subsurface scattering material. Well, I'd say it depends, because when you composite things you are being artistic, and I'm just excluding the lighting pass out of it because it is the most brightest one, and the other passes I use in my composite anyways because I need them with the separate light passes. So they are most likely set to full here, and this is the older version of V-Ray, and everything is working. Subsurface scattering material just a little here, because this guy is actually not the actual lighting sources, they are their containers with subsurface scattering material on them. And if we take a look on them here, we can pick their material here and see that it has V-Ray subsurface scattering material on them. So I found subsurface scattering material very useful to make things that should obscure lights. As a matter of fact, very useful for making signboards when you make objects that obscure the lighting sources. So that's why it is included here. And by the way, this subsurface scattering material is the part of the beauty pass, as it is technically correct. In V-Ray it is the separate pass, and I like the way the V-Ray thinks about it. Separate pass should be a separate pass. Then we have specular, the direct reflection of the light. You see that specular sometimes can be very smooth, like with no actual light spot on it, because the light can be weak or it can be very blurred, and it can like be feathered like that, the specular pass. Then we have refraction that is happening inside of the lamps. I've just put on some grunge texture on them, I believe. I will take a look here. Yeah, very simple, no grunge texture here, just the refracting material with the fall of map in the reflection slot. So then we have plate reflection. Yeah, so this is just the reflection pass. We see that there is an extractor effect here, taking out the reflection pass, and then it is a little bit blurred. If we turn on the exposure, we can see the better. And as there is no much objects in front of it here in the scene, it is very weak because there's not so much to reflect on it. Then we have the GI, global illumination, also very weak because there's not so much objects in the scene, and because there's not so much lights there lighting this plate to bounce lights from it. That's why it is so weak. But they are all making the final picture completed, and I found it to be crucial to duplicate this red light a lot of times because it is very strong here and it is seen here in the scene. If I won't duplicate it, we can see that this is not strong enough. So I've duplicated it multiple times here. Then we have the lighting passes, which are separated to lights, makes you so much flexible. You can control the intensity of the lights on the compositing stage. You throw the color correction effects on them or just tweak the opacity like that, like I did here. I've set it to 50% of opacity and now it is less intense here. Same thing, left street light with mask here. Looks like I wanted it to be masked here like that. Not exactly the correct way, but you know, when you are compositing things, you are already like very artistic. You're starting to do all the things you want in order to get the final image you need. Here we have no mask because it is used fully here, and here I have the masked version of it to enhance it on the left side like that. So that's basically everything I can say about the weapon store plate. So let's go back to our composite composition and view the Chinese fast food plate, which is a little bit different because it is different plate. Here it is. So inside of its passes, slow them up. So this is the passes composition without the grunge. Grunge is added on top in the next pre-comp here. Should turn everything to full mode so you can see. So we have mostly the same setup of this same separated lights, which you can duplicate to make stronger, lower the opacity to make weaker, and The main pass on which I'm working here is the subsurface scattering pass, because this whole plate is with subsurface scattering material on all its parts. No, I mean excluding these holders there that are metal. And inside of it there's lighting sources that produce this strong subsurface scattering materials intensity. So you can see there's like a lot of lighting sources there inside of it. They shine through the walls of the plate. And alright, and this makes this subsurface scattering material very strong. Turn off the masks here. You can see how strong it is. So this is like the main pass here on which I'm working here. I'm just throwing masks here and recreating the lighting of it on compositing stage. So as dumb as that. So I also have specular included here, reflection. So you see the refraction is absolutely empty because there's nothing to refract here. So it's absolutely useless pass in this composition. It's not needed here. And I worked a little on the reflection maps, distorted them with noise a little there. So we can see GIs also with noise to make it a little bit more alive. Then we have a separated light sources that light this back metal things. Adds a little bit of detail there, but not enough until I add a heavy load of grunge on compositing stage. Let's turn off the depth now. You can see just added some grunge here with corner pins, as easy as this. So it's pretty blurred there on the side of the frame with this wide angle lens. Yeah, that's how it is. The main challenge was to match this lighting and shadows feathering here and their color. Make it like more greenish and to match this kind of, you know, color ramp from greenish blue to red here. I've done it with masks mostly. So I'm more of a compositor guy. So another plate I've modeled is this LA Computer Shop. That's what it's called. So it has a little bit different setup of a lot of lights. It is separated on every light it has. You see a layer. So let's solo all the layers that are enabled here. If we like turn off the L layer, you can see that it gets weaker because one of the passes that contain it is being turned off, and if we turn off the GI, it is being almost completely turned off because it is only left somewhere in reflection or specular. So the refraction is again absolutely useless here, I believe, because there's no refractive materials here. I think I've just outputted them just in case I will have something refraction in the scene, and I will already have them in my compositing stage. To not forget about them, but they are not needed here at this point because there were no refractive materials added in the scene. And you can like make the S letter very bright by duplicating its passes. Very interesting, yeah. So this light separation works really great when you are dealing with a lot of lights. And I will talk more about it in the class where I will show how the compositing of the background of the previous scene was done. There will be a lot of passes, breakdowns, and all of these project files are on my Patreon. So if you want all these cool project files, subscribe to my Patreon and you will get access to project files of all the videos I've done and all the videos I will do in the future. The link is always in the description, and thank you for your support. Now let's continue our class. So now let's go to the composite composition. I'm going to go layer by layer here. So if we solo the first layer, we get the invisible cleanup. Guess what it is? I'll give you 5 seconds and then I will reveal the source shot. Can you see the cleanup here? Revealing the source shot now. So I guess I can use a mask to show it with wipe. The director wanted me to remove these steps to the garages, make them look more like stores. So that's what I did here, and including where his legs are. So this means that I had to like key out his legs in front of this bright step, and rotoscope the parts that was impossible to key out, like here and here, and restore them. Yeah, so a little bit eroded, I guess, but it works. And one of the hardest cleanup here was to replace this car's number, clean it up like it wasn't there at all, like it was here, because it should be here. So that's what I did. I without any information, I've like managed to restore these things here, looking at the references of this car. Alright, so I guess we can already go inside of this cleanup composition to see it in detail. Let's go inside of it. As you can see, the cleanup always comes first. Usually you do cleanup first, usually you put it like a first layer instead of the source footage before compositing. That's usually how it works. So inside of... Alright, my brute force Wi-Fi networks are not secure enough. I should connect to other guy. Yeah, done. So again, let's go layer by layer here. Let's close all other comp views and see how this looks like. So first I'm putting the car bumper here. Now if we go inside of here, we got the bumper paint. If we go inside the bumper paint, we have painted bumper here. We have a paint effect on it. So this is just a hand painted bumper with only a paint effect, a lot of clones. I've done it by hand. Going further. So now there's a little bit grunge there and looks like it is not loaded. Let's load it up and replace footage file. Alright, this should be in my textures folder. Dirt and noise, and let's find it here. Here we go. Done. So this is just a little bit of grunge put in there to recreate this bumper that is hidden behind of this thing. I had to recreate this specular on it and all that stuff to make it completed. I mean this specular here. Let's recreate this specular. Alright, then we completed the car and going for... We didn't complete it yet. We have to put the number there, but let's see what's next. So there's a little bit of a lamp there. I mean on-set lighting lamp, so just painted it out there. Next, paint out this thing, director set. Absolutely useless task. Why to paint out this thing? Because it's too modern. It is not seen there. Why should you do such stuff? Only wastes artist's time. Alright. Then we go to the central gate paint, and the way I've painted them, I've just transformed them down. Then took the frame holes without his legs, degrained, of course, because the grain of the red dragon is really heavy in the low lighting conditions, and then painted out his legs. So this is briefly how it works. And then I do the same thing with left gate. It is a little bit differently done because there's no moving legs there. There's just a static objects that I have to like paint out like from left and from right to put them there on top. Puffy smoke. This is Andrew Kramer's smoke, I believe. Then the right gate, yeah, covers the car a little, and the car's rotoscoped here. And then car number, the car number put in there. It's just a car number, which I took from the web and changed a little. So license plate, very funny name. Here we go. That's how it looks like. And it is put on there, color corrected, integrated. Going to composite composition, cleanup, breakdown. Yeah, and then I'm starting to do some preparations for the plate compositing, just this tiny details. This is the saturation adjustment layer that makes this wall more suitable for weapon store plate, which is not so saturated. So this brings me to another concept of how artists should think in order to get the final shot. The movies are more and more being made entirely on computer, and this means that you don't have to think that you only have a control over your renders and stuff. You always have to think that everything that comes to you, including the source plates, should be changed at your will. You decide how the shot will look like on the post-production. Develop your artistic vision, develop your feel of composition, so that the director will like your work more than his own. Then we go further, we get some wall damage to this is just some grunge for the Chinese fast food that is being put on here, and then the grunge really helps to integrate it here. So then we have a little wire here that I figured out that I have to model. So by the way, I have like a close-up shot with the Chinese fast food breakdown on my channel, and there's no VFX PhD course about it. I only talk about it on my channel, so you're welcome to watch. Then we have manual shadow here. This is a shadow that is for the Chinese fast food called manual because it's done entirely on compositing. So I found it easier to do shadows. I found a lot of things to do easier on compositing stage because I'm a compositor. So then we have the weapon store plate, which is our composition that we've just breakdown. Then we have the puffy smoke of Kremer covering this weapon store on top. So a little bit more of it, I guess. And we have the Chinese fast food plate. Matted shadow. It's the shadow from 3D. Yeah, so it's inverted and put on there. Then we have the glow of this letter. So one letter is like working and another letter is also working but weaker than this one. So then we have more glows. Let's turn off the masks. These are all masks of a glow. See, this is all glow. So a lot of them were like drawn and then I've like turned them off because I didn't like them. Or they are subtractive masks that subtract the glow. This is how it works. And we have the LA Computer Shop 3D shadow here. Very funny name for those who live in LA. I was in LA last SIGGRAPH, absolutely love this city. I'm gonna go there again in 2021, I mean this year, if you are watching it in this year, in September. So I'm gonna live in a tent with my computer, unless I find somewhere to live. So if you have a couch to throw my face on for a couple of weeks, hit me with a message, this will be a great help. And I'm the kind of person who remembers all the good things done to me. Thank you so much. See you there. So, puffy smoke. The smoke that's covering LA Computer Shop. So this is the main effects and flickering controls. Just a null object that contains a lot of effects, to which effects that are buried inside of precomps are linked, so that it will be a lot easier to control them. And you can see that there is a lot of like flickering sliders here, to which the expressions are applied. And this slider is, for example, connected to some dot of the computer shop, which is inside of LA Computer Shop. Let's open it up. So yeah, I've just found one of that is linked to one of those sliders inside of this composite composition. So you see that there's like an expression here saying that it is linked. So this is just a mask.gi, which is probably not the only layer linked to this composition layer to flicker this dot here to make it like malfunction. So, and you can see just a wiggle expression here, simple as that. And this brings me to a very important point. Always do like such a null object in your main comp if you are comping in After Effects, because you can like Ctrl-Alt-C your effect from it and like go inside of some comp and Ctrl-V it here, and then you will have it with all the parameters linked to your main composition, where you can easily control multiple layers with it. Understand me? For example, you want to blur all the smokes. There's like multiple smokes here. So you like create a fast blur here. Just for example, there's so much you can do with this. And you hit Ctrl-Alt-C to copy it with links and go to all of your smokes layer. puffy smoke, Control V, Control V, Control V, and maybe inside of pre-comps, the ones that are even more harder to control because you have to go inside of each pre-comp and change a value for every layer of them. So now that they are all linked here, because you've copied them with links, now you can just like control them in this null object. Very flexible way of compositing in After Effects. Let's go further. That's what this null object is for. So yeah, another bad English here. To rename it to fire hydrant repaint. Like that. So this is just this fire hydrant that director put there, and then he didn't like it, and then he wanted me to remove it on post-production. So this is just the covering of fire hydrant in the places where it is visible behind the CG light posts that I'm putting here. So I believe that legs are not repainted there, or they are just cut on with edit. So I'm putting the light post here instead. Actually, I think that it is incomplete. It looks even more uglier. Or maybe with letterbox it looks alright. So that's the point of painting out this fire hydrant, to composite this light posts on which there's some light post attached papers with normal blending mode. So as simple as this. And the fire hydrant from here is rotoscoped and put on here. This is what the director wanted, and that's all. Some additional puffy smoke to cover all the work I've done, and a lot of blur and motion blur will make you a great artist. Just kidding, of course. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy my classes. If you do, the link to the project files is always in the description below. For LA Couch talks, you can hit me on any of my social medias, but I'm most of the time in Telegram. My name is Kirill Pleshakov. It's nice to meet you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next class. Have a nice day.